Right, hello everyone, welcome to StudioJake with WarriorWoman91. As you can see, I am not Jacob Airy, I am WarriorWoman91. You can go and subscribe to my channel if you like. And also, you should be subscribing to this channel if you are not already, because it is a pretty awesome channel. I would not be filling in for Jacob if I did not think it was an awesome channel. So definitely like this video, subscribe to this podcast, and let us know what you think in the comments. Because Jacob Airy decided, you know what, I want a vacation, I'm going to have a fill-in host, and he decided, I'm going to risk it. I'm going to bring WarriorWoman91 onto my show and have her talk. And as well known, I am a crazy person, and Jacob is basically my brother from another mother, and he has overlooked the fact that I am slightly insane, like borderline insane, and he's let me come on the show and share with you my movie opinions and pop culture thoughts. And so let's just begin. All right, so what I want to talk about today is basically the top franchises that I follow within movies. So the top movie franchises that I think are important to be following. This is not a comprehensive list. This is not based off of some, film school that you have to watch these movies in order to be educated about film. This is just what I personally enjoy following and what I think is important for my own personal preferences to be keeping up to date on, and I will be sharing with you movies that I am excited about that are coming up within these franchises, and even some books that I'm excited about that are coming up also in the next 2 to 5 years. So I want to start off with first the Marvel franchise, because that is the biggest franchise right now in cinematic history. I mean, not history, more like in cinematic modern times, let's say. In the last 10 years, the Marvel franchise has just taken off. It has become one of the hugest franchises of all time, and I think it has it has a wide range of movie categories within the franchise. My favorite movie, still to this day, is probably Iron Man 1. It's very hard to beat. There's 4 movies within the Marvel franchise that I think are the top movies. It's Iron Man 1, The First Avengers, Captain America Winter Soldier, and Infinity War. Those are the 4 movies within the Marvel franchise that I think are the best movies. It's a toss-up. It really is a toss-up, because Iron Man 1 and Captain America Winter Soldier are just phenomenal movies, and it is incredibly difficult for me to really say this is definitively my favorite one, this is my favorite one, because I loved Captain America Winter Soldier. I thought it really turned everything that we thought about Marvel up to that point. It really turned it on its head. But then you've got the first Iron Man. It was such solid character development. That's one thing that really frustrates me in movies, when there isn't character development, and that's what makes me excited when there actually is character development within movies, and when it's good character development and it brings you from A to B to C to D, and there's a crescendo that you're coming to, and then it's very, very apparent when it's not there, and then it's very exciting when it is there. And so that's my little take on Marvel. Unfortunately, the franchise is at a little bit, maybe not unfortunately, but the franchise it's at a little bit of a standstill right now. It's in a transition period, because they just ended their 10-year build-up. They had this build-up over 10 years, over 3 to 4 different major characters, and then a couple of other side characters that came in, and they've been building it up with movie after movie. I think it's 21 movies in total over the last 10 years, and now they are just they're in a transition period. They killed off their biggest character of the franchise, and now they have to decide, okay, where is the franchise going next? And Jacob and I have actually talked about this on my channel, discussing how the franchise, the Marvel itself does not seem to know quite where the franchise is going next. And so it's going to be interesting to see where they end up taking it. They're kind of grasping at straws right now. They've got their hands in all these different areas. They've got new movies coming out over here. They've got new TV shows over here. Disney's launching Disney Plus over there, which is where a lot of these Marvel movies are going to end up. I think it's a lot. It's too much right now for the audience to really grasp where they're going. And so it'll be interesting to see where they end up. I'm not overly thrilled about any of the TV shows that they've got coming. I'm not overly thrilled about the majority of the movies. However, movies to look out for. I am looking forward to the Black Widow movie. It is kind of the movie that we've all been waiting for when it comes to her character. I think that Captain Marvel was a big disappointment for a lot of people because she was new, she was unlikable, her character was underdeveloped. It's a huge stickler point with me. The characters need to be developed, or I don't care. I don't just care because, oh my gosh, there's a female in a superhero suit. I don't care, okay? I don't care. You need to give me reasons. This is like you're going into court and you're trying to make a case for me. Why should I like this character? Why is this person guilty? Why is this person innocent? Make the argument. Make the argument, you guys. I don't care. I did not care about Luke Skywalker because he was a farm boy on some planet. I needed character development. I needed to know why. Why should I care about him? Well, there's something going on with his dad. And, there's this old hermit that has answers to this mystery about his dad and, this buildup and, he's emotionally conflicted here and he's immature there. But then over the course of movies, he becomes more mature and that's called character progression, you guys. When the characters develop and they evolve and they become, and you are given reasons to care about what is going to happen to them, that is what draws you in. And that's the problem with Captain Marvel. If you contrast this with Black Widow, her character has been developing since 2010. This Black Widow movie that's coming out will be in 2020. So we've had 10 years of character progression from her that's been generally with some faulty points. I was really unhappy with how they handled her character in Age of Ultron. But that aside, she's had character development, including bad character development, I would say, but she's had character development since Iron Man 2 in 2010. So it's going to be really interesting to see where this ends up. My only, disappointment is that it is a prequel because they killed her off in Endgame. Spoiler, sorry, you guys, if you have not seen that movie by now, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but it is unfortunate that it is a prequel, but I am looking forward to that movie. I am also looking forward to the Doctor Strange movie. It will be Marvel's first horror movie, and it will also feature Wanda, Scarlet Witch. So I am looking forward to that movie. A little bit hesitant because I don't know just how dark Marvel is willing to go. Even though it is a horror, I just, they're not, it's not rated R. So, that could play to their advantage, but it could also just mean that it'll be kind of warmed over milquetoast. I'm hoping that it's scary. I don't like horror movies that are gory. I prefer tactful scares, like Psycho, for example. I like camera angles that are set up so that you can't see what's coming and stuff like that, or shocking scenarios or whatever. I don't like gore. I think it's too easy to gross somebody out. It's a cop out. It's just a cop out. So those are the two Marvel movies I am looking forward to, and that is the first franchise that I continue to follow, even though it is going to start, I think that the franchise is going to start to lose some of its popularity due to the fact that the major elements of the franchise have been killed off or done away with. So we'll see where that goes. So the next franchise I want to talk about is the Lord of the Rings franchise. And this franchise is actually more important to me than probably any other franchise there is to follow. Lord of the Rings, the movies are masterpieces. It's one of the few times where I can actually say, if you watch the movies, you've seen the essence of Lord of the Rings. You don't actually have to go and read the books. I would highly recommend you read the books because there's a lot of depth that obviously couldn't be transferred into the movies. There's a lot of backstory that makes it a lot more interesting. And there's a lot more that you find out that happens to the characters after The Return of the King. I know everybody got a little bit of movie fatigue at the end of The Return of the King. But there's a lot of stuff that happens after that doesn't get talked about, even in the main books. If you read the appendices at the end of The Return of the King that explains, here's what happened to Legolas, and here's what happened to Gimli, and here's what happened to Eowyn, and here's who married who, and here's what happened, and then they had kids here, and, you know, all that stuff, that's all great. But you don't have to read that. You can watch those movies, and Peter Jackson and Philippa Boyens and Fran Walsh really did a fantastic job containing the essence of the books within a film format. There are obvious changes, especially in the second two movies. There are changes that sometimes changes have to be made just because the format is different. Sometimes changes are made for marketing purposes. I don't think it damaged any of the characters, the way that they handled any of those aspects. Lord of the Rings is one of those franchises that you just have to watch. It's a main staple, and it should be, if it's not, on one of those film school lists of what you should be watching to prep yourself for. This is the gold standard. This is the gold standard of the early 2000s, and it carries over even into now, because it is amazing when you watch, for example, the Star Wars prequels and the CGI that was used in 1999. They were using that was 97, 98 when they put those movies together. And then you watch Lord of the Rings that came out in 2001, so that it's still similar era CGI, and the CGI does not hold up in those prequels the way the CGI does hold up in Lord of the Rings. It's holding up less so now that we've advanced so far, but it has held up for so long because they were tactful about it, they were tasteful with it, they didn't focus solely on CGI. There was animatronic use, there was real life, there was a real life touch to a lot of the elements there. And it's another argument I would have with why the original Jurassic Park holds up so much better than the CGI follow-ups to Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park 3, for example, CGI is awful, and it's 2003. You would think that it would improve, but they did not use animatronics in that movie, and that's why it's awful. It looks fake. It's like a video game. Similarly, you look at the Jurassic World movies, too much CGI. It's just not, it does not hold up to stuff, you guys. You gotta make it, you gotta sell me on scare, on character. You gotta sell it. So there isn't a whole lot going on with the Lord of the Rings franchise right now. They did have the Hobbit movies, obviously, that were complete and utter disasters. I thought the first one was okay, the second two, awful. The third one, oh my gosh. It's one of the most abhorrent uses of classic characters I've ever seen. And I could do an entire episode on why the third movie of The Hobbit is just an abomination. But that's another story for another time and another channel. The one thing to look out for in the Lord of the Rings franchise is the Silmarillion. So I'm a little bit unclear on this. The Silmarillion has some fantastic stories. I've read the entire book. It's got some fantastic stories. Apparently, there is a movie series that originally was going to be based off of the Silmarillion and is now being based off of... I'm not sure if it's even being based off of anything. The reports have been unclear. First, they said it's going to be based off the Silmarillion. Then they said, no, it's going to be located in Middle Earth, but we're going to be creating our own characters within that world. It's a little bit, it's unclear what they're doing, but that would be the thing that I'm looking out for. I will probably, take a peek at it. I think likely what they're trying to do is compete with Game of Thrones and the popularity that Game of Thrones had. But we'll see what happens there. So the next franchise I want to discuss that is a franchise that I keep an eye on is the Star Wars franchise, which unfortunately is a dying franchise. And it's very, very sad because the original Star Wars movies were classics. The original Star Wars movies still are classics. If you watch them standalone and pretend like none of this other stuff is going on, they're still fantastic movies. The animatronic use and the minimal computer generated images, it holds up. It's a fantastic movie. All three of them are fantastic movies. Even if Return of the Jedi might have been a little lackluster, it's still they all hold up over time, and they're timeless movies. And Jacob and I disagree on some aspects of the prequel trilogy. I think that the prequels, when I was a kid, let's go back, when Kelly was 11 years old, whatever, the prequel trilogy was what I lived for. I loved it. I loved the prequel trilogy. I did not need as much character development when I was younger. I just knew it was an exciting story. I do think the stories that are contained in the prequel trilogy hold up. They followed through A, B, and C. Here's what's happening. There was character development. I did care about the characters. It might have been shallow character development, especially in the case of Anakin. But I thought there was a lot of positives in the prequel trilogy, and it really comes to light just how many positives there actually were in the prequels when you watch the sequels. But my issue with the prequels is the character development is rather shallow. The essence of Star Wars that we got from the originals is kind of lost. Kind of the feel of it is very different, and I think that was done on purpose. But it's kind of a personal preference thing. It's not the classic Star Wars for sure. But the thing that is terrible is what they've done with the sequels. They took all of the classic characters and they destroyed them, utterly destroyed them. And then they replaced them with characters that are not developed, characters that you don't care about, characters that I don't know anything more about Rey at the end of The Last Jedi than I did at the beginning of The Force Awakens. I don't know anything other than she's a special snowflake princess that can use a lightsaber and has had little to no training. It's really been a disappointment to watch. However, I will be going to see the third Star Wars movie. I will be watching that car accident like I watch any other car accident. And I used to, when I lived in LA, I was right next to the freeway. I've watched many car accidents. So the Rise of Skywalker, or whatever this third movie is called, it will be a pleasure to watch another car accident. It will be sad to watch a franchise that I grew up with and I was a huge fan of when I was a kid, to watch it die because some people decided that they knew better than the original creators and that Star Wars is just basically a cow to milk for them. And that's kind of how I feel they're treating Star Wars. They're not actually respecting the material or the characters or the many people that might have come up and said, hey, maybe we should do something different. Nah, we just want to make money and inject our own political agenda into the movies. And if you don't like it, then we're in a special club and you can't join, basically. It's very childish what they're doing with Star Wars. So that's what's coming up next. The Rise of Skywalker in December. Buckle up. It's going to be a wreck. It's going to be a train wreck. So another movie that I'm excited about, this is the franchise of Disney animated movies. I don't follow all of them. I don't watch all of them. I watch select ones. I have not been watching the live action remakes. I've been rather disappointed with them up to this point. The first one that they did, I can't remember, I don't know if this was the first one, but this was one of the early ones that they did, was the Cinderella movie. Fantastically done. They had a different take on it. There was a lot of backstory that they added into it. You didn't even get to the really where the movie started until almost halfway through, where the original animated movie started until almost halfway through. It was really fantastically done. And then all of these other movies, there's no There's no extra backstory. It's almost a shot-for-shot remake of the originals. And that's not what I want when I want to see a live-action remake. I want to see new material. I want to see new backstory that's actually interesting and drives the plot forward. I want to see, I was really disappointed, particularly with the live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast. I thought they were going to go a lot darker with it. They really didn't. I thought it was an unfortunate casting decision to use Emma Watson. Not that she doesn't resemble Belle in some way, but she can't sing, so they had to auto-tune her voice. They didn't go darker. They didn't add anything more, and so it just seemed like a nice try at a phenomenal animated movie, and it just really drives it home just how good that animated movie was. So the movie within the Disney franchise that I actually am looking forward to is Frozen 2. Frozen gets a bad rap because it was overmarketed and there was an oversaturation of it within the market. And but I actually enjoyed the first Frozen movie. If I had only seen it once or maybe gone to see it a second time, then I would have been fine with it. Got sick of it about the point when I walked into the bank and I'm hearing that song for 150 times. I don't need that, you guys. That's enough. It's enough, okay? But I am looking forward to the second Frozen movie. I think the animation looks fantastic. I hope that the story is as good as the first one. Obviously, I still think that Tangled was a better movie than Frozen because those two movies are often compared because they're similar animation styles. And in fact, I think Frozen ripped off a lot of animation. If it wasn't the same franchise, I would say Frozen ripped off a lot of the animation from Tangled. But I'm looking forward to Frozen 2 for the animation. The characters were developed sufficiently for me that I actually do care about them to a certain degree. I think it's really cute. And yeah, I mean, again, this is all my own personal preference. If you think that I'm crazy, that's okay. Most people do. It's fine. So the next franchise I want to get into is the Star Trek franchise, which is another one of those franchises that is kind of dying off because they made some remakes of Star Trek, which they hit gold on certain levels and they hit rock bottom on other levels. But I still enjoy watching Star Trek, and I still enjoy oftentimes seeing if they have a new movie or if they have a new TV show. I still enjoy some of that. So I've been going back and rewatching a lot of the original series, which I am a huge original series fan. I also like The Next Generation, but the original series just holds a special place in my heart that I keep going back and watching it again. So basically, all I really want to say about Star Trek is it's a great show you can go back and watch again, like over and over and over again. Take a break for a year or two and then come back and rewatch the whole thing again. It's just a great binge show. You just watch it over and over again. It doesn't get old. Because it is old. It's already old. It's already aged beyond its expiration date, and it's still going. So you can just continue to watch Star Trek over and over again. Watch the original series. One of my favorite episodes, if not my favorite episode of the entire original series, is Space Seed with Ricardo Montalban, who is my favorite actor of all time. I think he's the only villain. This is another thing. Take note. Villains must be developed. This is why you notice DC has better villains than Marvel generally because they actually take the time to develop them. And in Star Trek, they did have a hard time developing villains because the villain was some alien, some faceless alien, or it was a group of people that you never saw that would just happen to be there, or it was another ship or something. But this time you had an individual who was actually given a backstory, given motives, given animosity towards the main characters, and that's why he ended up being a huge villain in the movies. He was one of the only villains that was ever carried through from TV to movies with Star Trek. So it's really, in fact, I think he may have been the only villain. I'll have to go back and double check that, but so let's see. That's the Star Trek franchise. The next franchise I want to talk about is Jacob's favorite, DC. So I've been watching the Batman animated series lately. I've never actually watched it all the way through, and I've been trying to watch it all the way through. I just finished the last episode of season 2. I'll be working on season 3 coming up. But let's see. I am looking forward to the next Wonder Woman movie. I do have a little bit of apprehension about it because they've already revealed that Steve Trevor comes back, so that surprise element isn't there. I just really hope that they do it well. I really hope that they don't just rest on the laurels of the first one, because I thought the first one was really, really fantastic. The first one brought me to tears. I thought it was amazing. So that's what I have coming up for DC movies. Obviously the DC has really struggled in the movie department ever since the Dark Knight series ended. The Dark Knight itself, I think, is just the gold standard for how DC movies should be made, and I think the Dark Knight and the Wonder Woman movie are those are like the two kinds of DC movies that ought to be made. You've got Wonder Woman, which had a little bit more of a quirky, fun-loving feel at times, and then you've got the Dark Knight, which was just a psychodrama. Like it was just this incredible use of villain was developed 1000%. I thought that Bruce Wayne was a little bit mediocre. I thought he was an okay Batman. I wasn't excited about him, but that's an example of the villain was developed fantastically. DC is really good about developing their villains. The Joker is always he's just an amazing example of that. But DC in general has a lot of well-developed villains. Dr. Destiny, if you watch Justice League, the animated series, Dr. Destiny scares the crap out of me. And he's an animated character, and I am 28 years old, and he still scares the crap out of me because they developed him first, then he becomes the villain, and the reveal in the cartoons of when he's actually becoming Dr. Destiny. He, like, of all villains in DC, there's the Joker for me, and then there's Dr. Destiny. And he is the freaking scariest villain you will find out there. When his face peels off and oh my gosh, you guys have to go watch the episode. It's towards the end. It's one of the very last episodes of season 2 of Justice League, the animated series. So definitely check that episode out. Justice League, the animated series, just in general, is a fantastic series. I like Justice League better than Justice League Unlimited because Justice League is a much more tight-knit group. It's just the 7 original Justice League members. And Justice League Unlimited gets into all the other members of Justice League, and I feel like it's a little less cohesive. It's still good. It's still a good series, but the original first 2 seasons of just Justice League, they are some of the best. There's Batman the animated series, and then there's the X-Men series, and then there's Justice League. I feel like those would be my top 3 animated superhero cartoons. And then Earth's Mightiest Heroes, I think, would be number 4. So you've got still the DC ones triumph with the top 1 and 3 spots, but those would be the best animated series for any superhero aficionado. I highly recommend those 4 series. So let's see, how many other franchises do I have here? The final franchise I'm going to talk about that I'm very excited about coming up is the Hunger Games franchise. Now, you might think that the Hunger Games is over with, but wait, there's more. So I did not read the Hunger Games when they first came out. I was not part of the frenzy of, oh my gosh, we have to go see the movies, and the books are coming out, and it's great, and it's like the new Harry Potter and all this. I wasn't part of that. I remember it being something to do. It was like the end of the summer, and I was trying to do something fun before I went back to college or whatever. And I was like, you know what? This was like 2015, I think. and I remember just thinking, I'm gonna just see if this is okay. I'm gonna try it. People liked it. There's a movie franchise. I don't want to miss out on something good if it's actually good. So I checked the first book out of the library, and I started reading it. And before I knew it, I was in chapter 4, and it then became this. I did become frenzied at that point. I think I finished all 3 books in a week. It was a lot. I'm the kind of person that gets kind of greedy when I'm reading books, and when it's really, really good, I can't stop. I mean, I can stop. I am a fully capable adult that can control my actions, but I can't, because I like when I get a book in my hand that's that good, I will burn through it. I will forget all of my other responsibilities. It's worse than playing Minecraft. Like, I've spent 5 hours at a time just reading a book like that, and then being done with it, and then feeling, oh, there's nothing left. So that was how I was with The Hunger Games. And then I watched the movies, they're almost on par. Like, the first 2 movies are almost on par with how I feel about the Lord of the Rings franchise. They really got the essence of the books on the screen. They translated it well. They did a fantastic job. The struggle with the third movie is that they split it in 2, and so... there's 2 struggles with the third. The third book is a downer. The third book throws you into depression. Like, don't read the third Hunger Games book, Mockingjay. Don't read that if you're already depressed, because you will be suicidal by the end of that book. It's very, very depressing. So there was already a struggle there. Then the powers that be decided, no, we're going to split the third book into 2 movies so we can milk this franchise for all it's worth. And that was a big problem, because you had a movie that was already going to be a downer, and then you split it in half, and so it's kind of this almost downer, but with no payoff at the end. And then they put all the good stuff in the second one, but by that point, you had kind of forgotten what happened in the first one, and you didn't really care anymore. It was a bad decision. If they were going to split it, what I would have suggested, and if you haven't seen the movies, I don't care at this point. You know what? Spoilers, we're already there. What I would have done if we have to split this movie, I would have stopped the first movie at the point where Katniss gets shot. In District 2, I think it is. She gets shot as Mockingjay, and it's like this big moment where she's giving this speech to all of them and telling them that they need to join up with their side because this, and this reason, and then Katniss gets shot. And then end the movie there. Then people are psyched, and they're going to go and see the rest of whatever happens in the second one. And there's a lot still left. There's a lot left that they could develop in that second one. There might not have been as much, but they certainly dragged the first one out with the way they did as it was. So that's what I would have done to correct that. But yeah, it was a struggle there with how they handled the splitting of that book. I think it wasn't a franchise killer, but it was a disappointment. It was a disappointing end to a really, really fantastic franchise. And I think a lot of fans kind of died off after catching fire because of how that was handled. So what is coming up? You thought that The Hunger Games was almost coming to its end. But what is coming up is there's a new book coming out by Suzanne Collins, the original author of the original 3 Hunger Games. She is writing a book based off of the Dark Ages. So basically how the Hunger Games came to be is what the story is going to be about. It's going to be set, I think, 64 years prior to the first Hunger Games book. And so that'll be very interesting to see how things go. One thing that's funny is she had originally intended the presidential villain in the Hunger Games to be based off of George W. Bush, because she wrote those books during the Iraq War, and she was basically trying to provide some commentary on that. And so I assume that the new villain in this Hunger Games prequel, like prehistoric prequel, will probably have some relation to Donald Trump. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to the fact that because now they're going back to the 64-year prior point to the Hunger Games, I hope that they then jump forward and do a Hunger Games based off of Haymitch's Hunger Games, because that was a very famous point in Catching Fire, the book, that didn't get really touched on in the movie at all. And that there's actually a fan fiction that was produced, and I think you can still find it on YouTube. Somebody acted out Haymitch's Hunger Games, and they did a really fantastic job. So if you guys want to check that out, please do. Looking forward to the next Hunger Games book. I will be buying that at the minute it comes out. I will be pre-ordering that thing, and I will probably burn through it as fast as I burn through the others. Very much looking forward to that. So I did want to give a final shout out. That's my last franchise, but I wanted to give a final shout out to Jacob's wife, who is the one who purchased and gave me the eyeshadow I have on right now, and I just recently learned how to use it. Thank you so much for allowing me to have the opportunity to try out some eyeshadow. And that's basically it. That's what I got for you guys. Thank you for watching StudioJake. Please like, subscribe, and comment on this video, and ring the darn bell, you guys. What's wrong with you? It's so easy to just ring that bell. I don't know why you... In Minecraft, you can go and actually ring a real bell, and it makes all of the villagers run into their houses, and then you can raid the place. So ring the bell. You never know what's going to happen. You might be able to raid a village on Minecraft if you do it. So anyway, thank you to Jacob for allowing me to come on the show, and I will see you hopefully on this channel sometime. And you can also subscribe to my channel as well, WarriorWoman91, and check out my show, You Got It. So thank you again, Jacob, for letting me come on and host your show, and hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. Take care.